Now, the latest from ITV News Meridian in the south.
Good evening, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south.
I feel very sorry about what I have done.
Guilty of manslaughter, the paranoid schizophrenic who stabbed a motorist to death in a road rage attack in Sussex.
A family speaks out as an NHS trust admits it's going to review 10 other killings involving its patients.
For us, all we can do is cling on to the wonderful memories of Dad.
Also tonight, game on again. Football clubs rally round to help 3,000 Bournemouth fans after the Manchester fake bomb fiasco.
Good evening to you. A man suffering from paranoid schizophrenia has today been found guilty of manslaughter after stabbing a Sussex motorist to death in a road rage attack.
Matthew Daly, who's 35, carried out the assault on Donald Locke after a minor collision between their two cars.
Mr. Locke, who was 79, died next to the A24 at Findon near Worthing last July. He'd been stabbed 39 times.
The court heard how Matthew Daly had been suffering from mental health problems for a decade and how his parents desperately tried to get help, but he'd been wrongly diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome.
Well, John Riles in Lewis for us this evening where the trial took place. John, what was the reaction to the verdict?
Well, Fred, a highly charged atmosphere in court as the jury returned its verdict of not guilty of murder, guilty of manslaughter, a verdict that triggered tears and protests from Don Locke's family, both inside and outside court. That verdict means that the jury accepted the defence case that Matthew Daly killed Don Locke while in a psychotic state, that he had diminished responsibility at the time of the crime. This reaction just now on the court steps from Don Locke's family.
This verdict effectively provides the Daly family with what they have wanted for the last few years. Their son in a safe place away from harm's way and being treated correctly. For them, they can still visit their son, hug him and talk to him and enjoy aspects of his life with him, albeit constrained at the same time. For us, all we can do is cling on to the wonderful memories of Dad. As a consequence of the failings of the NHS and this verdict, it is clear that Dad would still be here today if they had done their job properly.
Well, in a minute we'll hear excerpts from Matthew Daly's videoed police interviews. Those have been released to us in the last few minutes. First, Malcolm Shaw with the background on the case.
This was the moment the grieving family of Don Locke visited the spot where he lost his life. The 79-year-old had been driving home when the car in front braked sharply and the vehicles collided. The driver jumped out and stabbed Mr. Locke repeatedly. His widow, Maureen, was left devastated.
He was a wonderful husband for 55 years, and it finishes like this.
The killing took place on a summer's evening on the A24 at Findon. The attacker was Matthew Daly, a 35-year-old with a history of mental illness. He stabbed Don Locke a total of 39 times. Eyewitnesses described how Daly remained expressionless throughout. As police sealed off the scene and began a painstaking search, eyewitnesses described the horror of what they'd seen.
I heard a commotion, came out about 8:30. There was a lot of people stopped there, walked over. The fellow was lying in the grass verge, like on the edge of the grass verge, and from straight away I thought he was dead.
Police warned the attack on Mr. Locke had been frenzied, the offender still on the loose.
We are looking for an extremely dangerous man, and we need the public's help to identify him and arrest him urgently. We don't know who he is, he has access to a vehicle, he could be anywhere.
As a huge police operation got underway, Don Locke's family made an emotional tribute to him.
full of wisdom, full of wit, always calm, always supportive, the perfect role model and full of charm.
After the killing, Matthew Daly drove off, dumping his car at the stables where he worked. His mother found it there and went to the police. 18 hours later, a few miles away near Worthing Golf Course, officers tracked down their suspect and arrested him. After 2 days of questioning, Matthew Daly was charged with murder and possessing a knife in a public place. Police searched his flat on St Elmo Road in Worthing. Neighbours described him as a quiet man who volunteered as a gardener, but at his first court appearance, magistrates were told the 34-year-old's mental health would be a crucial issue in the case. Don Locke, a retired lawyer, was a passionate cyclist, a leading figure in the Worthing Excelsior Cycling Club. At his funeral in August, hundreds turned out to pay their last respects.
Don was one of life's wonderful people, there's no two ways about that. He was the heart of Worthing Excelsior Cycling Club, and I must confess I and many others had a very sleepless night until we found out the following morning that he had actually died as a result of the attack upon him. And it left a vacuum not only with me, the other members of the club and the club itself.
At the time of his death, Don Locke and his wife were looking forward to the birth of their 6th great-grandchild and planning their next holiday. Don had just been given the all-clear from cancer. His zest for life cut tragically short in the most brutal way. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Findon.
Daly chose not to give evidence at his trial, but the jury did hear from him, and at some length. 4 hours of videoed police interviews were played to the jury. Here are some clips from that footage.
That's stood up with my knife. That's when I attacked him.
What happened?
I reached out with that, and then I reached out with it again, and then I think he fell to the floor, and then it was just like autopilot. I wasn't thinking, I was just doing. Just stabbed him. Quite a few times. There were people behind, all queued up, putting pressure on, and that's when I got up and got back into my car.
And what happened then?
I drove to the stables where I had been working all day and just parked the car because I didn't know where to go, and I'd been there all day, so I just returned.
John, we've heard from Don Locke's family. What did the police have to say on the steps of the court today?
Well, Daly was charged with murder, convicted of the lesser offence of manslaughter. The police have praised the family of Don Locke for their conduct and dignity through the investigation and through the trial. This from a senior detective in the case.
This is a tragic case for all those involved. It happened in a peaceful area of West Sussex, on a busy road which thousands of people use regularly. It came out of the blue, and when it happened it was horrific for all first responders and witnesses. What has struck us is how dignified Don's family have been throughout the whole investigation.
John, what about sentencing? What's the judge said about that?
Well, that's not happened today. The judge has said he needs to see psychiatric reports and other reports and assess those before he passes sentence, and that will happen back here on July the 8th.
John, for now, thank you very much indeed. Well, Matthew Daly was under the care of Sussex Partnership NHS Foundation Trust, and we heard during the trial how his parents had begged managers for help before, quote, something bad happened.
The Trust admits it got things wrong, and late today it announced a review of 10 killings involving patients known to the Trust between 2011 and 2016. Speaking to ITV Meridian, managers admit serious failings on their part. So were the family's calls for help ignored? Matthew Shaw put that question to the Chief Executive of the Trust.
What I would say to you is we didn't listen closely enough to the Daly family, and that's one of the lessons that has come from the review that we've carried out. And it's not necessarily that it was falling in completely deaf ears, but there were aspects of what they said to us that we should have listened to and acted on much more closely.
What could you have done better?
He was being treated primarily for Asperger's with psychotic symptoms. And actually, as a part of the review, we've determined that probably we should have had a stronger focus on the psychosis.
How might his treatment have been different if you'd diagnosed his condition properly?
Potentially what we could have done if his primary diagnosis had have been a psychotic diagnosis is to consider whether or not that Matthew would have benefited from being treated or detained under the Mental Health Act.
He was, at a fairly early stage, diagnosed possibly as being schizophrenic though, wasn't he? And yet that then seems to have been just ignored.
It's a very complex and sometimes difficult relationship with our patients in terms of getting that diagnosis right. And therefore he was being treated primarily for Asperger's with psychosis as part of the symptoms as well. So he was continuing to receive treatment and medication for psychosis.
Have you identified anyone at fault? Has anybody been disciplined for your failings in addressing his mental health issues?
We as the Trust took full responsibility for the care that was provided to Matthew over the length of time that he received that care. So the emphasis for us is on ensuring that we learn from this rather than blame our staff for what has gone wrong.
The defence have suggested that if Matthew Daly's mental illness had been correctly diagnosed, Don Locke might still be alive today.
Can't say that with any certainty. I would want to offer my condolences to the Locke family. What we can say is that we didn't provide the right care for Matthew. Whether or not that would have meant that this tragic incident wouldn't have happened, we can't. We're not in a position to predict whether it could have been prevented. NHS England will carry out a review with an independent review and determine whether or not this was predictable or preventable. And we will cooperate entirely with that review.
More on this story tomorrow. For more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian. Give us a call or get in touch via Facebook or send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
An unacceptable fiasco. That's how a security blunder is being described tonight, which led to Bournemouth's match at Manchester United being postponed.
Yes, a fake bomb used in a training exercise last week was found in a toilet shortly before the kick-off. 3,000 fans who'd travelled from the south were forced to leave Old Trafford. The match has now been rescheduled for tomorrow evening, with Bournemouth offering free travel to their supporters. Chris Morn has more.
76,000 football supporters heading for the exits. Initially they evacuated 2 of the stands at Old Trafford, but as the bomb squad moved in and with police overhead, the whole stadium was cleared and the match postponed.
Match abandoned here at Old Trafford.
A security training exercise involving sniffer dogs was carried out at the stadium last week. It appears a fake bomb used in that training was left in a toilet, and that led to the code red security alert.
Clearly what has gone wrong was human error, but it's human error of the kind that simply shouldn't happen. A device shouldn't have been allowed to be there from Wednesday, as I understand it, till Sunday, and only discovered 20 minutes before the kick-off. So unacceptable. Yes, fiasco, but definitely not funny.
It emerged today that a Kent-based company called Security Search Management and Solutions Limited had been working with an agency used by Manchester United and left the device. It should have been retrieved when their training exercise was over.
The police use them, the military use them, even in private security, as in this case, and they look exactly the same as a live device.
For some of these supporters, their trip to the Theatre of Dreams had become an expensive inconvenience.
I know for a fact it cost me £51 in diesel because I drive up, I fill my tank in my car up, I drive up, drive back, now I fill it up and we split it.
We came up last night, so it makes it even worse. You get the added expense then. Still, it's better to be safe than sorry, isn't it?
The fixture has been rearranged for tomorrow night. Tickets from yesterday are still valid. And AFC Bournemouth are providing free travel to help fans making the 500-mile return trip for the second time in 3 days.
It's the very least that we can do to show our respect and thanks for the support that they've given the team all year.
Supporters who want to use the free coaches need to register this evening. The team will fly to Manchester tomorrow morning. Chris Morn, ITV News.
Well, the city's police and crime commissioner is demanding an urgent inquiry into exactly what happened. Andrew Fletcher's at Old Trafford for us now with the very latest.
Well, Manchester United will continue to carry out what they call a detailed evaluation of what happened here yesterday. They have just put out a statement, though, clarifying some points. They say that the device was signed as having been recovered by the contractor along with 13 others used in this training exercise last Wednesday. They also say there's no way it could have been detected yesterday by the sniffer dogs during the routine sweep of the ground because it contained no explosives. And Manchester United say, faced with the same situation, we would act in the same way. Well, the next time those security measures will be tested here at Old Trafford will be for tomorrow night's rearranged fixture. Manchester United are offering free entry and a refund to those fans with tickets for yesterday's game. In addition, Bournemouth are offering free coach travel for those Cherries fans able to make a second trip north.
Now more sport with Sarah Gom.
Thank you very much, Stacey. Yes, a look ahead to Brighton's Championship playoff second leg coming up. First, though, back to the Premier League, and Southampton fans can celebrate another trip into Europe after yesterday's victory over Crystal Palace at St Mary's assured Saints a place in next season's Europa League.
ITV Meridian Sport Report, sponsored by WeWantAnyCar.com, the Cash for Cars website.
Saints boss Ronald Koeman hailed a fantastic season and says he's ready to take on Europe after yesterday's 4-1 victory over Crystal Palace. Sadio Mane opened the scoring shortly before the break, sending his side en route to their highest ever Premier League points haul. Graziano Pelle doubled their advantage before former Saint Jason Puncheon pulled one back for Palace. Ryan Bertrand's spot kick made it 3 before Stephen Davis sealed the victory. It's a win that prompted Koeman to stress how happy he is at St Mary's, perhaps going some way to settle the nerves among fans who fear losing their sought-after boss. And there was more good news for Saints fans today. Roy Hodgson has named defender Ryan Bertrand and keeper Fraser Forster, who last week signed a new 5-year deal in his initial 26-man squad ahead of Euro 2016. It wasn't, though, such a successful weekend for Portsmouth, whose promotion dreams came to an end last night following a stoppage time goal at Plymouth. After a fraught first leg left this tie hanging in the balance at 2-2, last night's decider was no less tense. It wasn't until after the break, though, by which time Pompey had lost Gareth Evans and Danny Hollands to injury, that the game stepped up a gear. Despite a succession of chances at both ends, neither side could break the deadlock. At least not until Peter Hartley's stoppage time goal, the likes of which have haunted Pompey during this campaign, that confirmed the club will spend a 4th successive season in League Two. Now, Brighton are going to have to pull off something pretty special at the Community Stadium tonight if they're to keep their promotion hopes alive. Chris Hughton's side must overturn a 2-0 deficit from Friday night's first leg at Sheffield Wednesday to secure a place in the Championship playoff final at Wembley. Andy Dickinson is at Brighton for us, and earlier he sent this.
Well, this is the 3rd time in 4 years that Brighton have reached the playoffs, but they've left themselves an awful lot to do. Paul Barber, Chief Executive, games don't come much more nerve-wracking than this, do they?
No, it's a big game, big occasion, but we're going to give it our best shot, and we're going to go all out to try and turn this around.
Just what went wrong on Friday at Hillsborough, do you think, and how did the team put that right?
Well, 4 injuries to 4 of our best players certainly don't help, and that leaves you 10 men in a very, very important game against a good side, and we were very happy actually to come away only losing 2-0 on the night. It was a difficult game, and we were up against some very poor luck on the night.
And this return match, a home game, the fans here can make a massive difference, can't they?
The fans genuinely can make a massive difference tonight. As you can see, the stadium's going to be very full. We're going to have a lot of noisy Sheffield Wednesday fans to overcome. But we're up for it, the players are up for it, and the club's in good spirits as we go into what is now our most important game of the season.
Thanks, Paul. Well, there's going to be an extraordinary atmosphere here tonight. The Albion need to win by 3 clear goals to go through. Let's hope for an extraordinary result.
Oh, it's going to be tough. We've got everything crossed. Right, cricket, and Sussex and England wicketkeeper Sarah Taylor is to take a break from the game. The 26-year-old, who features in her county's Hall of Fame, will take time out for personal reasons. And Ballardo, with jockey Andrea Azzini, seen here in the blue on the far side, timed his finish to perfection to land Newbury's big race this weekend, the Lockinge Stakes, with prize money of almost £200,000. The 8-to-1 winner is likely to compete next month at Royal Ascot. Royal Ascot begins on the 14th of June. Just time for you two to choose your hats.
And talking of winners, could Brighton do the near impossible tonight?
I can't bear to think that they won't.
No.
Sheffield Wednesday finished 15 points beneath them, but that's the playoffs. They're so cruel, aren't they?
Fingers crossed. Sarah, thank you very much indeed.
Now, members of the royal family were out in force last night for the finale of the Queen's 90th birthday celebrations in the grounds of Windsor Castle.
Yes, the wonderful ITV show hosted by Anton Deck involved more than 900 horses, 1,500 performers and big names from the stage and the screen.
Rachel Hepworth joined the celebrations on the Long Walk.
A grand entrance to a birthday party fit for a queen, a celebration of her 90 years. There was a kiss from the heir to the throne before the Queen took her seat among friends and members of her family for a star-studded event reflecting her love of horses and featuring entertainers from Britain and the Commonwealth. Gary Barlow got the party started, and the event was broadcast live on ITV, hosted by Anton Deck. Earlier, they'd welcomed guests on Windsor Castle's famous Long Walk, where winners of a ballot were treated to an old-fashioned knees-up.
Hundreds of thousands of people applied for tickets. A lucky 5,000 here today managed to secure them. Half of them are from the Windsor area, and they're all delighted to be part of this huge event.
I've applied for everything possible, so I'm really thrilled to be here today.
I just think it's great the nation gets behind her and says happy birthday.
We're all quite royalist, aren't we, living in Windsor? Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And the Queen herself seemed pleased to be here too, watching the spectacle of 900 horses from all over the world, and even a few animals from her own farm.
The Jersey and the Red Sussex.
Music came from stars like Catherine Jenkins and Kylie Minogue. She accompanied a French horse whisperer and his troupe of ponies, much enjoyed by Her Majesty and Prince Philip. There were stars of stage and screen too, Dame Helen Mirren, Alan Titchmarsh and Martin Clunes among those reflecting on the Queen's life, along with Damian Lewis, who went to school just down the road at Eton.
One of the key pillars of this celebration is the Commonwealth.
And the Commonwealth was well represented, along with all the pomp and ceremony you'd expect from a royal gala. Members of the Royal Horse Artillery were among those reflecting the royal family's long association with the military. A giant birthday cake marked the evening's finale, with the Queen clearly pleased to meet the stars of the show. A night to remember for them too. Rachel Hepworth, ITV News in Windsor.
Wonderful.
Incredible spectacle, wasn't it? Now, one of the biggest charity events of the year took place over the weekend, with 15,000 people taking part in the annual Moonwalk.
Indeed, millions of pounds were raised by women and some men walking a marathon around London, including entrants from our region, as Richard Slee will tell us.
There was a party atmosphere on Clapham Common as teams of walkers got themselves prepared for what's called a walk of life. This is the 20th year of the Moonwalk, a marathon event to raise awareness and money for breast cancer.
It never ceases to amaze me how you have just really ordinary people doing something quite extraordinary, and it's just wonderful to see.
The money raised tonight will not only help people living with breast cancer, it'll also fund much needed research.
I think I'm walking it for my daughters, really, because I hope that by the time they're my age that none of this will be necessary. And I think they're making such huge strides in research now that that might very well be the case.
Among the crowds are a group of women from the All Saints Dramatic Society in Bournemouth, who are walking for their friend Sandra Tompkins, who's currently being treated for breast cancer but didn't feel well enough to join them.
She had a reconstructive surgery in December, that finished in January, and she's just not had time to train, and with real life going on, she unfortunately had to back out 2 weeks ago. So we're all walking as a group for Sandra and for all of our other friends who unfortunately have suffered breast cancer, which of course can happen to any of us at any time.
I really thought it was going to be really easy, and I've got here and it's cold and we're tired, but actually, do you know what, the atmosphere is amazing, and so I'm really looking forward to it actually.
The walkers set off in groups of thousands. Ahead is 26.2 miles of nighttime sightseeing around central London. Richard Slee, ITV News on Clapham Common.
Incredible event, and luckily he's not in a bra, but Simon's here.
How do you know? Well, some people were out and about at the weekend, others just wanted to stay at home, wherever that is. Some interesting nests in interesting places for you. First up, that does just look like David Dunn's Bolt store in his garage in Westbury, and that's because it is, but in the 10x70s, look, you can see a whole load of nesting material. Robins have moved in and the eggs have hatched, apparently, he says. In other robin news, Marion Smart in Runkton in Sussex spotted a robin flying out of one of these plastic sacks of her organic homemade compost, and guess what was inside? Look.
Little babies.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jackie and Pat found their very first nest in the garage on top of the racking, and that's what was in it. Look, very noisy, I would have thought. Graham Lowe in Rustington sent in this picture today of a crow that's been setting up a nest on a television aerial on a block of flats. And finally, Brian King was visiting the city of York, waiting for his train to take him home to Bournemouth, spotted this. He said, obviously the pigeon had had a rough night. That's worse than one of my gags.
Weather for the birds are going to be all right.
I think they are.
Going to be all right. Simon Parkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Well, if you're wondering when the plants are going to get a good watering, you have to wait about 24 hours. But between now and then, well, the weather is going to stay fine and settled. High pressure, so a lovely day today and another decent one tomorrow. But then low pressure moves in and bringing with it some very wet and windy conditions. So Wednesday, Thursday, not looking that great. Back to this evening, though. Lovely end to the day. Some fine sunshine to take us into tonight. Of course, after dark, the temperatures will tumble away underneath those clear skies. Cold enough even in some rural spots for a touch of frost, although in the towns and cities generally staying up to around 7 or 8 degrees. And tomorrow morning, bit of a nippy start, but a decent one. Some good sunny spells to get us going. As we head through the day, nothing really changes, particularly the further east you are. That's where we'll cling on to the sunshine for longest. Temperatures here, 16 degrees, 61 in Fahrenheit. Winds staying light, but from the west, the cloud will start to thicken up, just turning that sunshine a bit hazy towards the end of the day, and then the rain will arrive tomorrow evening. As for your high tide times, you can see in Portsmouth, around 8:45 in the morning, 9:20 in the evening, and then Wednesday, some of that rain likely to be on the heavy side, and watch out, it will be quite windy as well.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Keeping a close eye on summer. The Pollen Count, sponsored by Ilogy Eye Drops.
Well, if you found yourself sneezing today, that'll be the tree pollen then, and with another good day tomorrow, expect levels to be high. But the good news about the rain that's arriving for Wednesday and Thursday is it will drag those levels down to moderate.
Now in just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Alistair Stewart and Mary Nightingale.
Stacey's got our late news, so do join her if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Take care and join us again very soon. From us all,
Good night.